All right, here we have reunion. When it says reunion, it means reunion between Worf and Kalar. Because, yeah. Now, this isn't the first time we see Kalar that was the emissary. And she's been in several episodes, honestly. And we get flashbacks with her in even more episodes later on after she dies. Yay. But what this episode does introduce is Alexander. Because, yeah, turns out in all those episodes prior to this, Kalar hadn't told Worf that she had a son with him. Why? Because Kalar thought that Worf would feel the obligation to marry her, and she didn't want to actually marry him for some reason. Because despite being raised by humans, Worf is like one of the most stereotypically Klingons in the show. He's like the straight man to the other Klingons who don't follow the rules. I don't understand that aspect of the way they wrote Worf in the TV show. I really don't. Anyway, though, from a TTRPG playing a standpoint, this is a very character specific one because most of the plot involves Worf. You have Worf doing whatever Worf feels like. You have Kalar and Alexander, who, well, this is also the episode where Kalar dies. So Kalar would definitely be someone who is a plot important NPC, and Alexander, yeah. Anyways, though, yeah, after a whole bunch of Klingon politics happens, Kalar gets stabbed to death. Worf decides to avenge her murder and kill someone, which Picard takes an odd stance on this in that he's kind of sort of doing like the worst of both worlds, where he's like, I'm not going to officially condone your actions. I'm going to officially um, condemn them. However, I'm not actually going to do anything about them. And he's just honest, like, that's it. To be honest, I think the writers wrote it that way so that they could maintain the status quo. Because you can't have Worf go do Klingon things off the ship, or you have to adjust the cast of the TV series. You can't do that, and you can't just like throw Worf into Federation prison for betraying his oath as a Starfleet officer. Nope, nope, nope. Can't do that either. So yeah, you have to give him an official reprimand for poor behavior, but don't actually kick him off the ship or something. Anyways, so the plot on this one was actually pretty simple. I mean, there's a whole bunch of talking about people's motives and honor, and quite frankly, this is one of those episodes that makes Klingon honor seem like a ridiculous contrivance that normal people wouldn't give a crap about. And part of the reason for that is Kalar's take on Klingon honor. Because as someone who is half Klingon and who is a Federation ambassador who often does ambassadorial stuff related to Klingons, and that's actually the reason why she's here. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention the focus of the Klingon politics, the right of succession, because of the fact that the current chancellor is dying and has been poisoned, and thus he has reason to believe that someone is trying to force a change of succession, and he wants to try and figure out who is the traitor who poisoned him, thus making it so that you have it won't have his killer become the new chancellor. I know. Viridium 6, other than the fact that we literally know nothing about it other than it's mentioned to exist. Well, one of the things that we note about it is that he was very, very slowly poisoned. And by the time of the episode, it was impossible to reverse the poisoning and that he was guaranteed to die soon enough. Also, apparently, it was stated that he drank it as mixed into his blood wine. Gee, I wonder who gave him the blood wine. Hmm. Yeah, I don't remember if they ever explained the exact specifics of that, but the basic gist of it is that this is a Duras plot, and of course, everyone hates the Duras clan because they're honorless scum or something. Anyway, though, if I remember right, this is the reason for Gowron getting to become the successor. Spoiler: Gowron is not exactly someone who actually makes as good of a chancellor as Kimpek was, apparently. He eventually gets killed by Worf too. Hmm. Shocking. Yeah, Klingon Civil War, Klingon Cardassian War, and Dominion War, and Worf eventually kills him because his stance on the Dominion War is something that Worf considered to be bad or something. Whatever. Very plot important NPC here, and this was the episode where he was introduced, who would go on to be used many, many more times in later episodes. Um, but yes, like most of this episode is focused on the fact that they're doing the rite of succession, and for some reason, Worf has to be involved, but the Duras side of the thing doesn't want Worf to be involved because he was discommendated or whatever. And it's just like, why would a Federation citizen give a crap about any of this junk? Oh well. Hmm. This is an amusing one because Picard is the one doing this because they decided they wanted an outside, impartial adjudicator for this, and that Picard, as the illustrious Federation captain and someone who is actually quite skilled at diplomacy, uh, is going to be the adjudicator. Mm, Oh yeah, the whole discommendation thing. Apparently, Kalar doesn't actually know the specifics of how and why Worf got discommendated. Forgot that part. Yeah, Worf is a very strange character in the show because of the fact that he's both very, very closely personal and also someone who doesn't actually do a very good job of hiding his past. Ugh, kind of strange. Now, this is an interesting note here, and something that I don't think would actually be the case in real life, especially since in a later episode we find out that this batleth actually gets destroyed. Anyway, though, Alexander's visiting Worf, who introduces him to the proper way to hold a traditional batleth, of which Worf's has been in the House of Moog for 10 generations. Um, Okay, if Klingon generations work like human generations, it's something like 25 years. So that Batleth would be 250 years old. In real life, a bladed weapon that actually gets used um, doesn't last more than a decade or two. In real life, all of the swords and stuff that are centuries old and used for ceremonial purposes are still centuries old because they only get used for ceremonial purposes. Although, in fairness, Worf mostly uses his to fight holograms in the holodeck, which probably means it doesn't actually get damaged in that. Anyway, yeah, this whole thing with Kalar and Gowron, it's like Gowron is trying to be a smooth deal maker. And it's like, why are you trying to be a smooth deal maker? Why aren't you just being honorable? Oh, wait, that's right. This goes back to the reason why I say that most Klingons aren't honorable. Even by the concept of Klingon honor, they aren't. How? Why? In a society obsessed with honor, are most of them dishonorable? Because of the fact that behaving dishonorably while publicly hiding it is more politically expedient than actually being honorable. And in high society, it is the politically expedient who get ahead and not the people who actually do a good job. Gee, I wonder how much like real life is that? Anyways, though, to be honest, that is actually one of those things that I thought was actually well done. Is the whole idea of like Klingon politics isn't clean and sparkly and shiny because of the fact that it's literally cutthroat, where they might actually slit your throat if they think they can get away with it. Now, this is an amusing thing: uh fact that someone used Romulan technology, and Duras is like, "What? That needs to be very, very carefully studied and verified," because everyone knows that Duras has Romulan friends. Hmm. Oh yeah, and Kalar and studying the Duras clan. Yeah. Yeah. We already knew that the Duras house uh, had Romulan connections, and because the Duras house was actually one of the few survivors of the Khitomer massacre. The Romulans killed most of the people at Khitomer, not all of them, and that is where this gets very, very interesting. Oh, also, we end up in later episodes with another Gerard because of the fact that I mentioned that Duras isn't actually the only member of House Duras left. So, you know, one of the other members of House Duras names uh, a child Gerard so that this child can continue the feud with House Moog. Yep, that's a thing. Here's the thing, though, is that in later uh, instances, House Duras is actually not as sneaky and backstabbing and conniving because after getting ousted for being sneaky, backstabbing, and conniving, people don't trust them as much as they used to. Therefore, people are very, very conscious of whether the people in House Duras are actually being upfront and honest with them. Something which results in them doing a lot of business outside Klingon space, but honest business for the most part. Kind of a refreshing change. I mean, they still end up getting killed in one of the movies, if I remember right, but whatever. And, so writing this for players. Well, obviously, players would be attempting to deal with Klingon politics. This would basically be a political intrigue episode, and you could write in um, actual combat for it, like space combat, ground combat, because this is the high danger kind of political intrigue, not the kind of political intrigue where you sip tea and crumpets and try to get someone to like you the simple way. No, no, no. This is the kind of political intrigue where you have bad actors and you have to figure out which bad actors are the current problem. And it's not as simple as, is this person a bad guy? Because we know that all of them are bad guys. All of them. Seriously, Gowron getting killed by Worf later is because of the fact that Gowron is someone that Worf considered to be dishonorable scum and not worthy of being Chancellor in the first place. He got the job because of the fact that the other option was Duras, and they just didn't have anyone else somehow. Side note, I don't remember an explanation of why those were the only two candidates, and I suspect that has something to do with the two of them doing political shenanigans to disqualify as many of the good candidates as possible. Anyway, though, yeah, that kind of political backstabbing, literally, um, high danger, high stakes. Like, oh, you might get killed while trying to be the arbiter of succession. Hope you don't die. Which is something that is very, very interesting to set up in a story. Thing is, this is something that would require some deep, deep story prep because you have to figure out the identities and motives of all of the major NPCs. Like, you you wouldn't just roll a dice and use the dice roll to decide what the motive that Gowron has for trying to bribe Kalar. I mean, Gowron has a very specific reason to try to bribe Kalar. It's the fact that Gowron knows that in a situation where people were actually judging him on his own personal merits, they probably wouldn't want to have him. Like I mentioned earlier, is that he's someone who does Klingon politics in a very Klingon way, but he's not actually widely liked by the other Klingons. See, because what one of the things with the Klingon houses is that the most prestigious Klingon houses are the rich and powerful ones. They don't get to be rich and powerful by being, up, honorable, upright citizens who do the right thing all of the time. No, which is where this whole thing gets dangerous and gives you opportunities for your players to do something less boring than talking. But like in this episode, there's only one time there's actual combat, and that is when Worf does the rite of vengeance. Hmm. And yeah, one of the things that's interesting here, though, is that the Klingons, after Duras gets killed in the rite of vengeance, they're like, "Oh, you know what? We may have had Duras as an ally, but you had a good reason for killing him, so we're not going to do anything about it. And like I mentioned before, Picard is obviously sympathetic to Worf's plight. It's just one of those things where he's like, um, I'm going to give you a uh, uh, reprimand for this, but I understand why you did it, so I'm not going to do anything worse than a reprimand, which is one of those like awkward middle ground things. But yeah, it's like as players, you would be the crew of the ship accompanying Picard and helping Picard do the whole like arbiter of succession thing. Worf doing Worf things would be a plot critical NPC, probably. You could have one of the players take the role of Worf, I suppose, but for the most part, I would probably just have Worf be a plot critical NPC because you don't need to have a player doing that. Although, because you would be probably not actually running the episode straight and be doing your own twist on it. Um, Having a variation of the story instead of actually having Worf, Kalar, and Duras in the story, you could have slightly different roles for the players, and thus create a situation where you have reasons for several players to be directly involved. Because again, it's like Worf is actually here just for assisting Picard with the right of succession. That's actually the reason why Worf is here. The whole fighting Duras thing was because of the fact that Duras kind of sort of provoked him into it. Because Duras is like, "What? You have that dishonorable Targ with you as one of your assistants for the right of succession? He's undeserving of being allowed to set foot on Cronus." Yeah, that was the basic tack that Duras took on this crap, which directly gave Worf a reason to do shit. And then, of course, there's the fact that someone murders Kalar, and Worf figures out that it was Duras, and then gets revenge on Duras for it. Oh, one of the things that's noteworthy here is that Duras doesn't actually try to deny it when Worf confronts him. It's just one of those things where they throw that in as a mechanic to verify that yes, actually, Worf does have the identity of Kalar's murderer. Correct. Honestly, that was actually rather a good idea there. Is that if they had seeded the idea that Duras may not have actually been the person who really had Kalar killed, then the ending of the episode would have been so much less satisfying. However, you, as a person writing a TTRPG version of this, yeah, you could write it so that everything is completely uncertain and thus no one really knows exactly what's going on. We'll see. Anyway, though, I think that's enough of this. Pointy Klingon politics. Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't show this scene earlier. This is the actual like rite of succession. It's like you have the dead body of Kim Tech, Picard as the arbiter, and Kylar who is just there to help with the arbitration. Notice how Worf's not in the room. These guys, you have Duras and you have Gowron and someone else. I don't remember exactly who all the other Klingons are. They're here really just to verify that Kim Peck is dead. So they poke him with paint sticks. And like, oh well, we jabbed him with the paint stick several times. He didn't even flinch, so I guess he's dead. Like seriously, you guys don't have better, more effective methods of verifying someone's deceased? Really? Whatever. I have to say, this is one of those things where it's a Klingon ritual that's very, very intentionally set up to look alien, just from the way that the room is decorated. Hey, you know what? You want to go over this in a TTRPG? Have fun describing the environment. It really makes the story feel more alive when you tell people what exactly the environment is like. Like this here, this is a sword hanging off of the wall. This is actually very similar to the sword that Duras uses in his duel with Worf, because Duras doesn't use a bat'leth. Nope, Worf does. See, that's actually one of those things that often gets glossed over. Is that while the bat'leth is a stereotypical Klingon weapon, Worf is the character who uses it most often, and even Worf doesn't exclusively use a bat'leth. In fact, in that infamous scene from Star Trek First Contact, Worf actually uses a mek'leth to dismember a Borg, not his bat'leth. Although, as I mentioned before, Worf's bat'leth that you see in all of TNG actually gets destroyed in DS9 when he's fighting someone, and the person he's fighting actually just snaps the thing in half. Eh. Yeah, yeah, we see mech less a lot more often after that because apparently Worf actually finds a mech left to be a more effective weapon. And again, that's probably the reason why Duras doesn't use one. Is that Duras prefers swords because of the whole thing of like, oh, I'm just going to run you through. Which, yeah, this looks like a sword you could definitely impale someone with. Hmm. There's actually some indication in some of the supplementary materials that the bat'leth is actually more of a ceremonial weapon and not used by the Klingons as a practical weapon. But stances on that are varied, and I'm not entirely sure if any of that is actually canon. Oh well. Oh yeah. There's also this scene. It's like, hey, time for you to meet your father, little man, because yeah, he's only a few years old. Yeah. They used a bunch of things that you could probably find at a gift shop in San Francisco when putting the props together for this scene. Oh, also, this is apparently supposed to be a library computer. Like all of these buttons, choose a book you want to read, click or something. I genuinely don't understand why they have rows of lit and unlit buttons, and you'll never find an explanation because it's supposed to look cool, and the people who made it didn't actually make it, you know, actually usable. Bonsai plants. One of which is flowering. Hmm. And tubes with colored sand in them. Hey, you know what? It works. Alrighty then. Well, with that, I will bid you see you later. Bye.